Hey guys, in today's video we're going to be checking out an enclosed 3D printer by a company called QIDI Tech, and the model of this one is iMate S. So in this video we're going to unbox it, set it up, and do some prints. Alright, so let's get started. Alright, so this is the box that the iMate comes in. It is quite large and also pretty heavy, weighing at 66 pounds on the shipping label. And here we can see the dimensions of the box. So there are straps holding it all together, and there are some carrying handles built into the box. So let's go ahead and cut these straps. So on the box itself there is a picture of what the printer looks like. Alright, so let's go ahead and lay it down. So this is the top here. We'll cut the tape. All right, so right on the top we got, looks like some documentation, looks like our manual, and it's quite nice, really nicely labeled, and seems to be pretty detailed in getting you started with the printer. So that's good to see. Looks like we got some more stuff in here, and appears to be an extra build plate in there also. So we'll take a closer look at this a little bit later. So it looks like the printer is nestled in this hard foam. So what we need to do is we need to flip it upside down onto this face so we can pull the box up. All right, up we go. So the other piece of styrofoam actually stayed in the box, and looks like we have something under there. So this is the bottom. Okay, it looks like some kind of cover. And so yeah, this would have been like this, and you guys can see how it's very well protected. And this is the best way to open it, is because now we have the bottom of the printer pointing to the top, and the top portion of the printer is protected here still in the foam. And so now we can unwrap this plastic, which will expose our bottom, and now we can flip it around on these rubber feet. So here you guys can see what the bottom looks like. There's a metal plate with lots of venting holes, and we can kind of see the electronics under there. And we have 4 really nice heavy duty rubber feet. But we're gonna actually come back down under here and take this plate off so we can see a little better what's underneath. Well, for now, let's go ahead and flip it around. And now we can take off the upper portion and the bag. And now we can really see what the printer looks like. Let's go ahead and remove this plastic. And I have to say, the printer looks pretty nice. The only thing looks wise is maybe this iMate should be, a lot smaller or somewhere else. But other than that, pretty attractive printer. And we have a pretty large door here that opens up. And you guys can see how it's all packed very well. All right, so let's start here on the top. We can see there's some foam here, piece of tape. There's actually another clear tape here that we need to cut. So that's gonna get us to slide them to each side here. Pull out the little foam. So the next part, what we need to do is we need to cut these zip ties here, and what's going on here is they're holding the whole mechanism from moving around. So let's go ahead and do that. So the next thing we need to do is we need to take out these little clips that are holding all the belts, and this keeps the axes from moving at all. So just need to release these, and there are 4 of them, 2 on each side here and 1 on the inside here and another one under here. So now we should be able to move the whole hot end extruder assembly here. And sure enough, it moves. We can move it forward and out of the way, and now we can take this piece of foam out. All right, so let's see what else is in here. So it looks like we have a cover. This goes on the top, and there's a little notch here, and this goes to the back, just like that. And the cool part about this little cover is that it does have little magnets on each corner that magnetizes and keeps it from moving around. And this is definitely the highlight of this printer, is because the top retains the heat and is able to kind of prevent the hot air from coming out, and thus giving you more temperature on the inside. All right, so here we have the build plate, and it is this textured material on a flexible sheet, looks like, that's magnetic. Now the sheet itself is not magnetic because it's a piece of steel, a really thin piece of steel. That's why it's able to flex. But the bed itself has magnets in it, and that's these little circles here, and these are magnets that are embedded into the bed. And the size is not very large. You guys can see my hand here. It is 260 by 200 and 200 tall in print volume. So not bad for, this size machine, obviously, and being a sealed enclosed unit, quite reasonable. So there's a piece of foam underneath the build plate that's got more stuff in it, but the only way to get it out is raise the build plate up. And I think we manually need to do that because we don't even have our power wire, and it's probably inside there. So what we need to do is we're going to try to just gently lift it, and that should bring it up. Sure enough, it does. So I'm just going to bring it up here as much as I can. That looks like about all it needs to go. Now it does fall on its own if I let it go. It's just coming down, so I'm going to have to hold it. And now we can try to pull out this whole piece here. And there's quite a bit of things in here to see. So we do get a spool of white PLA, and it is just taped to the side. I definitely like how they include a spool of it and not just a coil, and it is 1/2 kilogram. So here we have something interesting. Looks like it's a box with an extra extruder assembly. Look at that. And it does say here on the box that it's a 0.2 millimeter nozzle size. So interestingly enough, they include a whole assembly with a smaller size nozzle, which is 0.2 millimeters. I guess it's nice because you have a whole extra parts here for the printer, number one. And number two, it's not very hard to change a nozzle if you wanted to, obviously, from the other one. But I look at this as a bonus for extra parts for the long haul. So this is a all-in-one extruder with hot end with a heat break built in, and that's the fan that cools it. Heat block down here. It is somewhat insulated, and the extruder arm, all-in-one direct drive / hot end assembly. So, and we do have a pretty large axial cooling fan. So yeah, pretty good quality parts here. And one thing to note about the hot end assembly is that they're only rated for 250 C temperature wise. So this is not a high temperature setup, or at least extreme temperature setup. So we got all of our accessories. Here we have a leveling sheet, our AC power cord, pretty nice high quality spatula, and this is to scrape the prints off the bed, a flat screwdriver, a spool holder that combines with these two here. So these just slide onto the shaft. And there's a little set screw here that we got to loosen, and the other one goes on the other side. And essentially what you do is you put your spool in here, and then you put these around. So it looks like you could fit a couple spools in here. And this does go to the back of the printer, which we'll install here shortly. All right, a couple more things. We got a glue stick and also our thumb drive, and it is 16 gig USB style. So that's pretty nice. So now that we got everything unpacked, I want to go ahead, turn the printer on its back side. We're going to go ahead and remove this plate on the bottom so we can see a little better what's underneath. So let's go ahead and see what's in this little baggie. So it looks like we have a little tubing of some sort. It looks like for filament guiding. A couple large clips. It looks like an extra 0.4 nozzle with some PTFE tubing inserts. A little connector for something. A couple glass fuses. That's interesting. Usually don't see these. 6 millimeter wrench. 3 Allen wrenches, including one with a handle. And some miscellaneous bolts and washers. So yeah, quite interesting on all the different parts that are provided. So I'm going to go ahead and take all these bolts out. All right, so that's all of them. This just pops off. And here we get a better look of how everything is laid out. So yeah, already I see something quite strange over here. I'm not sure exactly why this is here. It seems like it needs to be over here. I think it popped off and kind of fell. It looks like a supercapacitor, and I think it goes onto the board right here. So I'm going to go ahead and plug that in. Well, I guess I'm happy that I opened this up because I wouldn't have seen it unless I did. Strangely enough, it was stuck over here to the sticky part on this ribbon cable. But yeah, in any case, everything else looks like it's really nicely laid out and routed. All right, so looking at the motherboard here. So it does have an ARM processor. So it looks like the stepper drivers are not removable, but they are synced. So that's nice. And they should be silent, I think, but we'll see when we turn on the printer. And here we have a ribbon cable that goes to the front of the machine where the touchscreen LCD is. We got a little cooling fan here that blows on the board. This is our Z-axis motor, and it is a single motor. And here we have the power supply, which is Meanwell, so that's nice to see. I definitely like these power supplies. They're very nice, and this is the slim one. It is a 350 watt, 24 volt, and all the connections seem to be nicely crimped. And here we have the power input that goes to the power supply. And I am pretty impressed with these rubber feet here. They're very heavy duty, and you guys can see how they're mounted. So yeah, overall the machine is a very nice quality, and everything seems to be built and put together very well. Now, for the exception of this thing popping off, which kind of makes sense, it is quite heavy actually, and they did glue it kind of, but I guess that wasn't enough. So that might be something they need to look into or improve. All right, so I'm gonna put the cover back on and we'll flip it around and take a closer look at the rest of the machine. So here we are looking at the back of the machine, and what I wanna show you guys is this spool holder back here. So let's go ahead and grab this piece here. We're gonna loosen one of these set screws, and that should let us go through. So I'm gonna go ahead and just leave it at the edge. Now, even though the set screws make sense, they're kind of impractical somewhat, because you always have to have a wrench to loosen them. And you know, whenever you put a spool in here and you put the little holder on the other end, you have to, you know, tighten it each time. I almost wish they would have made some kind of like a knob or something that you can spin with your hands. I guess you could spin this. But the way this works is that there's two arms here that pop up actually. And as you pull them, there's a little latch that locks them in where they won't back down. So if you want to go back down, you just release it and then it'll drop back down. So this is kind of interesting, I guess, way of doing a spool holder. So yeah, then this piece just sits right in there, just like that. And you put your spools in here. So, and if you are using the cover, your filament will feed from here through a little tube like this, and this literally just slides in there. And this one might be a little bit long for this, but yeah, they do have two right here on each side that are shorter. But yeah, the filament will feed through the tube and then into the printer extruder assembly here on top. And that's pretty much how the spool holder works here. So when you're done and you want to, you know, put it away, you can just, you know, tuck it down and that's it. Looking at the side of the printer, we can see that there's two openings here. They do have the covers for them, and that's what we saw earlier when we took the printer out. And there's actually two of them that are stuck together with little magnets on each corner. Now, I'm not sure if they want us to peel the layers off or leave them the way they are, looks like, because this side here has information of how to reach the company, and there are links to the after sale service, so I guess that's the way it goes. And the other side actually has just some cautions. All right, so let's take a closer look at the iMate. So the overall design is quite attractive. It's got a kind of rugged look to it. So going to the top, we can see here we have the clear cover, and this will keep the heat in, and it is magnetic. See the little magnets? They'll magnetize to those bolts there in the corners. Now there is a cutout here in the back where the filament feeds through. The only thing I wish they would have done is made the cutout a bit smaller. I don't know why it's so large. It could have been just as small as a little hole around this. So to me, that's a little bit of an odd design choice there. There we can see our spool holder. Pretty interesting design also. There's a couple stickers here. It just tells us to take off the clamps from the belts. And I guess we can pull these off since we don't need this information. And there's also another one on the other side. So there's also a sticker here, but I'm going to keep that one on. It's, I guess, the contact information for the company if you need to get a hold of them. Now going to the sides here, we can see we got these end plates, which do pop off. And I almost wish they were clear. I don't really like the look with the stickers on here. But I guess you could peel the stickers, and I might do that. And it just kind of looks a little out of place. Same thing on this side. And again, here we got contact information if you have any issues or just have questions. Let's take the cover off. So this is what it looks like from the top. We got a ribbon cable here coming in from the motherboard, and the cable's carrying everything it needs for the hot end and the extruder. So this is a direct drive all in one. And we can see here on the top, this is where we're gonna feed the filament in. I like how they have the metal insert there, because the filament is going to go, you know, on a pretty steep angle here if you're going to use the cover. So if you don't use the cover, it's going to go straight from the spool right into the extruder. So it looks like we have a pretty large fan on this side, some cooling. This is all plastic. Another fan up here, and then more cooling, and you can kind of see the motor there. So, and our release arm is actually right here for the extruder. So It is a little bit tight with this ribbon cable, but you know, you can fit your finger in there pretty easy, or your thumb, I guess. And on the back side, we can really see the extruder motor there. So the whole machine runs on these rods. This is our X-axis, and our X-axis motor is on this side. We got the wire that comes from it down, and also our X-axis in-stop switch is here too. And then our Y in-stop switch is right there. And going to the other side, our Y motor is down in there, and it's actually on a belt. You guys can see that, and it's going up to the rod here. And so this rod interconnects both sides, and there's a belt on each side that runs the Y back and forth. So yeah, this is a pretty typical design for this type of enclosed printers. So this is nothing new, but you know, it's proven and it works really well. Now for the Z-axis, we have pretty large rods, and then not so large a lead screw that runs it up and down. So I don't think that's as important. I would have liked to see it maybe a little more heavy duty, but this printer is not very large, meaning the bed here. So this is what it looks like from looking from the bottom up. And our hot end there, we can see the tip. Not much to see there, it's all closed up. So one thing that's pretty impressive is this build plate. So it's comprised of this pretty thick aluminum here. And then we got the sheet like we saw earlier, that's magnetic, and it's thin, so it's flexible. And we do have magnets, and that's what these little circles are all over it. The steel seems to be pretty thick for the frame itself. The wire connection in the back is strain relieved. Let's go ahead and bring this up. So looking underneath, I don't know if you guys can see, but the bed is not insulated, but it's heated obviously. We do have only 3 adjustable knobs, 2 in the front and then 1 in the center. And this usually works out just fine. And on the bottom, we can see the Z coupler with the motor being underneath and our Z in-stop switch there. So overall, the printer is built very well and tough. We got a plastic shell on the outside, and the inside is all made of this angled steel. You can kind of see the angle beams on each corner. So this is not a flimsy printer, it's very solid. Let's go ahead and put this back. So there is a door that hinges over, and it's pretty wide, and it is magnetic. There's a couple little magnets that magnetize to the body. We've got a nice wide view. Definitely like that. There's a little S logo here for the model. iMate. Again, I wish that iMate was smaller. Our touchscreen LCD and the USB port to insert that thumb drive. So looking at the back, there's not too much to see here, but going all the way down here, we can see that we have a manufacturer label and our power input, which is fused with the on and off switch. So yeah, overall a pretty nice looking printer, a good size, not too large, and definitely looks pretty good for the design here. So all right, so for the next part, let's grab our power cable, and it looks like it's pretty nice length, about 4 feet. All right, so I got the printer plugged in. Let's go ahead and hit the power button. And it does power on, and check out those lights inside, very cool. And it looks like it's booted up. So the interior lighting is really nice. It's definitely more on the white side than the blue, so I do like that. And it's quite bright. And it looks like it's all coming from a LED strip right here and behind this piece here in the front. So all right, very cool. So one thing I'm noticing right away is that it's completely silent as we turned it on here. So there's no fans running or anything else. So that's actually quite nice. So I think for the next part, we need to preheat it, home it, make sure all of the stepper motors are working. And then we need to go ahead and check our level on the bed. So here on the screen, we have print, system, tools, and after sales. So the print is going to be reading the USB. So let's click on system. So here we have information of the status of the motors and the hot end. About, change our languages, looks like we got a few to choose from. TPA adjust, we don't need to do that. A factory reset, the sound. So here we can turn the sound on and off, so I guess we'll leave it on. LED light, so we can turn on and off. I guess we'll leave it on for now. Let's go back. Now we have tools. So tools is going to be where we can control the printer. Let's go back for now and check out this after sales real quick. So this is just telling you where you can reach them out if you do have an issue. So on tools, we have manual, preheating, filament, internet, leveling, stop. I guess this is the motor release, fan, and then back. So if we click on manual here, we can see that this is going to be controlling our axes on the stepper motors. And we also have a home button right in the middle. And then here we have preheat. This is where we're going to preheat our bed and nozzle. So if you click it just once, it just goes straight to automatic preheating. I'm not sure how much you guys can see of this, but this is a pretty small screen, by the way. If you look at my finger, it's, you know, on the smaller size, but definitely laid out pretty well where you can see. Okay, so it looks like we have some fans that came up because of the preheat. Filament, you can load and load the filament with the extruder, but it is still preheating. The internet, here you can connect to the internet if you want to use that feature. And then we got leveling. And so we'll go there in a second after we go ahead and check all of our axes by clicking on the home in the middle. So I'm going to go ahead and click home, and we can see that the X and Y are working, and the Z is going down and also working. So yeah, all of our end stop switches and motors are operational, so that's good. So let's go back to leveling here. Now for leveling, actually, you want your bed preheated, but you do not want your nozzle preheated. And the reason you don't want to preheat the nozzle is because the leveling paper that's included here is actually a sheet of very thin plastic, so it'll melt really easy if your nozzle is hot. So you want to preheat the bed, but not the nozzle. And so here on the screen, it tells us to go ahead and stick the leveling paper between the nozzle and the bed, and then adjust this knob accordingly till you get a little bit of friction. So that looks like about right there for us. So it looks like it was already adjusted actually. So now we're going to click on the next button, which is probably a little bit overblown for you guys, but it's on this side here. And we're basically doing the same thing. It's just going to move to the next corner, and we're going to, again, level it here. So this one's a little tighter, so I'm going to screw it in just a bit. Now what's kind of cool is that these leveling knobs here, they actually have a little twisty knob beneath that. And what that does is just locks it in. So you can hold this while tightening the bottom twisty nut and locking this in, and it won't turn at all. So if you got it just right, this is how you can lock it in, and you know, the knob won't twist easy. So that's actually a really cool feature that I haven't seen yet. So let's go to the next one, which is going to be the back one here underneath. So this one's a little loose, so we're going to unscrew it. So I'm going to undo the twisty knob first, and there we go. And then I'm going to screw the twisty knob back on so it doesn't turn easy at all. Yeah, definitely love that feature. All right, next. So it looks like it's going right to the middle, so we'll check that. And honestly, that seems to be about just right. Now it does seem to need to go down just a little bit, and if we look over here, if you guys can see maybe or not, but it's showing us that you can go up 0.05 millimeters or down. So we need to go down a little, so I'm going to click on the down. That's going to drop it a bit. We'll actually raise this to get closer. Okay, so actually dropping it down doesn't mean getting closer. Dropping it down means getting farther. It's actually going down. So we need to go up, not down. So I definitely said that wrong. Okay, there we go. So basically you just want it barely to grab, and you don't want to be too close, but I think that's just right for me there. So all right, so we're going to click confirm, and it looks like it's done. Adjustment complete. All right. And as you guys saw there, once the motor's released, the bed just falls. And I think this is probably going to be the, I guess, maybe negative. Technically not a big deal since it has to go down anyway when it homes. And also where it can be a pretty huge problem is that, let's say you lose power on the printer and everything shuts off, the build platform is going to fall completely down. So unless it remembers exactly where it was from the end stop switch, you know, I don't know how accurately it can go back up since it's going to fall back. So I guess you got to keep that in mind also. But yeah, simple as that, guys. The bed should be leveled. Now, if your bed was like way off and you feel like you need to go more times, you can just go back to leveling it again and redoing the whole thing. But I feel pretty confident with mine because I had to barely adjust it. So it was already pre-adjusted very well from the factory. So let's go ahead and preheat everything again. So we're going to preheat the bed and the nozzle. So what I want to do next is go ahead and put our filament in. So let's go ahead and start with this white PLA that was included. So yeah, again, very nice that they included a whole spool, and the filament is taped for some odd reason. There we go. We'll go ahead and cut off the tape. So what we're going to do is we're going to pop off the spool holder and pull out the side that we haven't tightened yet. And then we're going to put a spool through here and then put the spacer back on. And you can actually tighten this by hand kind of. So yeah, it seems to hold pretty well even doing it by hand. Yeah, and then we're just going to simply set it back in. Now, since this PLA, we don't really have to use the cover, but I'm going to go ahead and do it. So let's feed our filament through this tube here that we installed earlier. Now, I think these little tubes here would be a better fit, actually. Yeah, let's go ahead and do that. I'll pull this long one out, and we'll grab one of these shorter ones, stick it in here, and now we can run our filament through there and then out into the extruder. So you guys probably can't see very well. Maybe you can still see, but so we're just going to go in there, and remember the little release arm on that other side. So we're going to push on it so the filament can go through. And so we're going to feed it down in there until it starts coming out. Now you can't just push it down through yourself, which is the easiest thing to do, and it should start purging underneath. And you guys can probably see it. Yeah, I guess you can see it there on the other side. So I'm gonna go a little more. Looks like there was some red in there. But yeah, you guys can see how, you know, it comes from the spool here and goes into the tube and then into the hot end. So now we can actually put our cover on and still be able to feed the filament through. All right, so we got everything preheated, leveled, the filament in. So for the next part, let's plug in the USB thumb drive into the port here, and then we'll go to home and click on print. And let's see if there's a test model that was included. So it looks like there is a G-code here that we can print. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, so it actually shows us a little preview. So it looks like we can delete it, start it, or go back. So we'll go ahead and start it. And there it goes. Get you guys a little closer here. All right, it looks like we started. So it's purging right now. So this is gonna be probably very hard to see because we got white filament on a white bed with super bright lights. And it's kind of making a shadow because the lights are coming from the top, so there's a pretty strong shadow underneath. But according to what I can see, I think it looks pretty good. So yeah, maybe this is not the best combination to start the first print, but it's kind of hard to tell how far off the bed we are because of the white filament. So as we're printing, let's go ahead and check out this menu here. So we have a little preview of what we're printing. And then we got our bed temperature, our nozzle temperature, the speed, which is 48 millimeters a second at the moment, the time that passed, and the estimated time of when it'll finish, which is 1 hour and 18 minutes right now. And then underneath that, we have the file name. So underneath the preview picture, we got the progress bar, which is at 0% right now. And on the very bottom, we have a pause, stop, and more options. So if we click on more options, we can adjust our speed, the bed, the nozzle, the fan, and the flow rate. And then also we can turn on and off the light itself. So to adjust anything, you have to actually click on the numbers themselves. So this is speed here. So let's say if we turn it to 80%, well, I guess we gotta delete that first. Say 80% instead of 100, and this is a check mark here. And now it's gonna slow it down to 80%. Same thing for the nozzle and the heated bed. So yeah, you got everything you pretty much need here. Now one thing I would have liked to see is maybe some baby step adjusting up and down, but I feel like this printer here should not have any issues with that. And the way it's built, the super thick slab of aluminum for the bed is very nice and level. So, all right, so we're boogieing along. I'm not sure how much you guys can see there. Bring a light in here maybe. But yeah, it looks like, you know, it's printing pretty quick and everything looks good. So one thing I noticed here starting to print is that the printer is not as quiet as you might think, because even though it does say it does have silent stepper drivers, I can still hear the movements of the printer. And I think a lot of it has to do with just some vibrations of the frame itself. So it's not loud by any means, but it's not, you know, whisper silent. And plus there is quite a bit of fan noise. So we do have the door open now, so we can hear quite a bit of it, but the top is closed. But I'm gonna go ahead and bring my mic in so you guys can hear it. And if we close the door, it gets much quieter. So yeah, with the door closed, it's actually not bad at all, but you know, you can still hear the movements and the fan sound. So, you know, keep in mind that this printer is not ultra quiet, but also not very loud either. So yeah, it looks like everything's fine, and it's printing, looks like a test model. So we'll see how that turns out. It's only gonna be about an hour. So it looks like here on the first print, everything looks good. All right, so our first print is done. Let's go ahead and see how well this magnetic bed works. Let's pop off pretty easy. And it's stuck on there really well, so it does seem to be pretty grippy. Of course, I couldn't really see our first layers, and we might have been a little too close now that I'm looking at it. Now let's see how easy this thing will pop off. Yeah, it's stuck on there pretty well. But it is coming off though. Okay. So yeah, we were a little bit close, but of course we didn't slice this print, so I'm not sure exactly how it's sliced. But yeah, it's gonna be really hard to see here on white. If you guys can maybe see something, it does look pretty good, what I can see. It's also kind of like a matte white, so you can't even really see it shine. Maybe up here a little bit you guys can see. So yeah, overall really good. So this test print here, you know, we're just testing to make sure everything works. I think what we need to do is we need to print our usual calibration cube and benchy, and with those we'll be able to see a lot better of what kind of print quality the iMate here produces. So I'm gonna go ahead and slice those and we'll print them out and check them out. Actually guys, let's go ahead and jump on the computer here and check what's on this thumb drive. So it looks like we got a folder that says iMates. Okay, so there's a PDF of the manual, looks like. So I like how their manuals are so understandable. So here we have the slicer software. So if you're not using Cura, you could install the provided, and that might be the best thing. But since I use Cura for everything, I'd prefer that. The test file that we just printed, a little video how to level the plate. More videos here, actually quite a few videos. So yeah, good information. How to set up your Wi-Fi, and how to replace the whole nozzle. So it looks like there's a little bolt on top, then the cover comes off, and then you unplug the cable, another bolt underneath, looks like a screw, and then another 2 bolts, and then you just work in reverse order to install the new assembly. So yeah, and that's pretty much everything that's on here. But I want to go ahead and show you guys how I set up in Cura real quick, which I do for every printer. I just have one profile that I always use, and it's very generic. There's nothing really special about it. So we're just going to go to machine settings and just change our dimensions, but everything else I leave the same. So this is just an Ender 3 profile. So we're just going to change our width to 260, then 200 on the depth, and 200 on the height. And as simple as that, everything else is just fine. Now we can see here the layout of the bed is exactly what we have. So layer height is a 0.2, we'll keep it at that. You guys can kind of see all the settings I got here. The wall count I changed to 3 because prints usually turn out a lot better. Top layers is a little more of 5 compared to the bottom of 4. 20% on the infill. Usually I keep this at 15 to save some time. So these temperatures here are the last project I worked on. So we'll just go to 200, which is generic for PLA. Well, initial, usually I like to go a little hotter. Go 210. Build plate 60 is about right. Print speed should be at 50. Retraction is probably a little high for this direct drive extruder, so we'll change that to 5. And yeah, everything else is pretty much the usuals. I'll put this to 3 on skirt, and that's pretty much it. And when we want to do spiralize, we just click on this and it'll go into spiralize mode. So yeah, this is pretty much what I use for every printer. So let's go ahead and drag the calibration cube in. We'll slice it, and it's going to take 36 minutes. So let's save to the removable, and it's saved to our thumb drive. So now we're going to clear the build plate, add our benchy, slice it. It's going to take only 1 hour and 54 minutes, which is really quick, and save it. Now I can just eject, and we're good to go. So if you've used Cura, I mean, obviously it's the easiest just to use what you know, but the slicer that's included with the printer is also pretty intuitive. So either way you want to go, but here I'm just going to use Cura because I want to stay pretty consistent with what I print for every printer. All right, so we're back at the printer, and we need to go ahead and change our filament. So I got the hot end preheating. All right, pull out this filament, pull out one of the sides, and we're going to use this silky black for our benchmark printing. And also I'm going to stick this blue in there. You guys can see that you can put 2 full rolls. Put our cover back on, and that's pretty cool that it can hold 2 spools. So we're going to grab the silky black, feed it through the tubing there, and then down into the extruder. Push it down manually to purge it, and maybe you guys can see it. And that's it, and we're ready to go. All right, so let's go back and find our files under print. So we'll start with the calibration cube. All right. I'm gonna bring you guys in a bit. All right, so it's purging on the side. Yeah, unfortunately, it's really hard to see it with the light on. Maybe if we can turn it off here, let's see. Okay, now it's too dark. There we go. It should be a little better, but I'm not sure. Well, that's probably the best I can get it right there. You guys can see that it looks like that we're really good right off the bed about what to expect there. So I have a feeling with this setup and the way the bed is, there's going to be not much adjusting needed as you initially adjust it the first time. All right, so we're gonna let this thing print out, and then we'll print the benchy and we'll take a closer look at them. All right, and there goes our benchy, and you guys are gonna see in a second, there it goes, how the bed just falls down on its own. Also, another thing I noticed is that on one of these covers, it says when you're printing with PLA to remove them. So I went ahead and removed them both, I guess, for airflow, and I also took off the top. So yeah, you only really need to use these when you're printing higher temperatures. And we're gonna get to that here, guys, in a little bit and really talk about where the strengths are of this printer and what it's really for. So let's go ahead and start with the calibration cube, and we'll look at the X here first. So we can see that it looks pretty good. There is a little bit of vibration and a slight amount of ghosting, but very slight, and overall looking really nice. Here we have the Y, which has quite a bit more vibrations and ghosting. So yeah, and that's kind of understandable for how this printer is designed, because we have a double belt on the Y-axis, so there's a lot more things to bind and go at a sync. So yeah, the Y is definitely more vulnerable. Our X wall, looking good, and our Y wall, and here on the Y you can see it's not terrible, but you can kind of see the steps. But interestingly enough though, you can't feel them. So it's definitely minor. If we look at it from a different angle here, you guys can maybe see that they're almost not there. In any case, bottom looks good and the top looks great. So let's go ahead and grab our calipers and we'll zero them out. Let's measure the X, and we're pretty close. And now the Y, also pretty good, just a slight hair smaller. And now the Z, which is also pretty close. So yeah, overall very good tolerance and accuracy. So except for the Y being a little ghosty, overall I would say the print quality is quite good on this thing. So I haven't taken off the benchy. Let's go ahead and see how easy it pops off. So the plate is still hot, but the cool thing about having a removable steel sheet like this is that when it's done, if you leave it on there, it's going to take a really long time to cool down because of how thick this aluminum is. But if you pull it off, it literally takes a couple minutes and it gets cold, the plate itself. Especially if you lay it down on something cold like a desk or even some granite or something, it'll get cold like within a minute. It'll just be cold because it's steel. So that's pretty nice, because then, you know, you can pull off your models pretty quick after printing. So let's see how easy this pops off. Sure enough, it's already crackling and pops off pretty easy. So it was a little bit warm still, the model is, so once it cools off more, I'm sure it'll be easier. But yeah, this bed sticks really well. You definitely don't want to be too close to this material here, because you can see here I still have some leftovers there from the calibration cube, but the spatula that it comes with is actually pretty nice to peel off the remaining filament. Now also, I didn't consider that because it comes with two of these, you could pull it out and then, you know, use the other one and print right away your next model. So that's cool too. So yeah, I'm definitely loving this removable sheet. The prints stick very well. All right, so let's take a look at the benchy now. So the benchy is definitely looking super good. So our bottom is pretty good. We got a little haze here from just the build plate itself, but other than that, it does look pretty good. Let's start here with the bottom, and we can see the layers are sitting very nicely. Now we do have a little bit of ringing right there. And what's interesting, this is going from the Y. It ends up being on the X though. So as we go farther, we can see everything's looking really good and smooth. And this opening here doesn't have too much ghosting, just a little bit here on the end. Going around to the other side, we can really see we got more ghosting here. So this is really interesting. But as far as this rounded flat area, it went down really nice. And this is our Z-axis seam here. But yeah, the layers are sitting really nice. And again, on the back, you can see that vibration just a little bit from the Y. Looking at the walls here, they look pretty good. Some vibrations here and there. No stringing, as you guys can see, so cooling is great. No sagging. On the box here, we do have a little slit, which is a good sign. Usually means it's pretty accurate. The top and the chimney also very nice, and definitely looks very round. So yeah, so overall the print quality is very solid. Now there is a little slight vibrations, so I think the printer did definitely very well with these two tests. It looks a little dark in there. There we go. Maybe too bright now, but what I want to get to is actually what this printer is for. So if we really wanted to take advantage of what this printer has to offer, we would change our filament to something like ABS, because ABS is quite a bit harder to print than PLA, is what we've been printing in. And not only that, ABS is very warpy when it comes to printing. And so this printer here should do excellent with ABS because we can seal it, plus we got great temperatures, plus we got a bed that can go to 100, which is suggested for ABS, and our hot end is barely hot enough for ABS, but it's still doable, of a maximum of 250C. So for all the next prints, we're going to print in ABS, and I'm going to go ahead and print a Benchy in ABS. That way we can see how that turns out, and also other models also in ABS to really see how well it does. And speaking about ABS, shout out to Overture, which I have been using their filaments for years now, and I've enjoyed them. Their PETG is great, and I've never used their ABS, so this is the first time we'll be doing that. So I'm pretty excited to see how well we can print with this filament and this printer that should do very well with ABS. So we got the gray, and also I got this pretty nice dark blue, so let's go ahead and put those two in. And you guys can see it can hold the two full spools, no issues. So let's go ahead and start with the gray, feed it through the tube, and then out into the extruder. And we'll push it through to purge it. Let's put our cover on the top to retain the heat. Our two side covers on each side. So I'm going to print the ABS at 250 on the nozzle and 100 on the bed. So it's going to get quite toasty in there. So let's go ahead and close the lid so it can retain heat. We'll go ahead and start that. All right, so it looks like it's gonna start. Get you guys a little closer, but it's hard to see. Maybe I should turn off the light again. Bump up my other light here. So yeah, looks like everything's okay. It did start with no issues. And we are printing a Benchy in ABS. All right guys, so it looks like we're on our second or third layer now, and yeah, everything seems to be just fine. And we are easily holding our temperature at 100 on the bed. It's actually 101 right now. And 250 on the nozzle. The thing that's kind of impressive is that the bed gets hot really quick. So because it's not very large, I think that's helping it. But more than that, I think it's just allocating a lot of power to the bed heating, which is nice. So I'm gonna let it print out and we'll see what it looks like. All right, so I actually printed a few more other things in ABS, and yeah, they turned out really good. Let's go ahead and look at the Benchy here first. So overall, it looks great. The only issue I see is maybe a little bit of layering here and some retraction problems. And I'm thinking because the spools are new, it might have had a little bit of tugging here and there because they are quite heavy to pull out. But other than that, this is quite a good quality Benchy here, and it didn't warp or pull off the bed at all. If you've ever printed ABS, you probably know that it's not a friendly filament to print in. And not only did this Benchy turn out really good, but we got some other things here that are quite impressive too. So this is the same filament, also in ABS. And this is a moving part, which requires precision, and you know, it's easily fused together because of tolerances. Now I did have to use a wrench to break this loose, but it did break pretty easy once I stuck it in there and churned it. It churned. So the tolerances are pretty tight, but it does churn. And I do have to use the wrench. I could do it by hand, but it's a little hard. But in any case, so yeah, you guys can see that very successful print. And again, no warping or lifting off the bed. So, and the last print here is I wanted to print something large, because when you print ABS, especially long, skinny pieces, kind of like this here, they tend to warp really easy. But because the chamber is sealed, we were retaining heat, and the bed is at 100C, you guys can see that there was no lifting whatsoever. It's literally perfect. And look how well the layers came out. I mean, that's beautiful. And this is ABS we're talking about, so. And I haven't taken this off the bed. Let's see how easy it comes off. I'm gonna bend it. And look at that, it just peels right off. So yeah, it is pulling up some of the bed with it, the coloring. That's why you got some white here. But other than that, we got a super straight horizontal line with no curling whatsoever on any of the edges. And by the way, this is an electrical box for like an outlet. So this is just a test print here. All right, so that's great. And that's what I was hoping, that the printer would do well with ABS, because I feel like this is its strong point. So I'm gonna continue to print with ABS, and we'll take a closer look at that. Alright, so we printed more ABS models, and guys, I really have to say I'm quite impressed of how well this printer does with ABS. I never really used ABS. It's kind of an OG filament from back in the day where 3D printing started, and the fussiness of it, warping and things like that, kind of didn't really pique my interest in printing in ABS. So let's go ahead and look at some of the models here. So this little frog here is printed in ABS, and you guys can see how amazing it turned out. I'm really impressed of how the layers went down. And it's literally perfect. And by the way, all the temperatures are the same still. 250 on the nozzle, 100 on the bed, 0.2 layer height. So pretty coarse layer height, and still the layers are going down really nicely. And this is a pretty fragile print with little details, and yeah, the printer just did an excellent job. So yeah, excellent on the frog here. So another print that's really impressive is this Octopus, and this has a lot of different pieces that have to stick to the bed, and then they all kind of combine with these little feet here. So this is a pretty intense, retraction kind of print, and again in ABS here, and it looks excellent. And by the way, guys, ABS is much stronger than PLA and a lot more heat resistant. And there's probably a bunch of other good qualities to it. I haven't even really looked into it, but yeah, very impressive that prints turned out this good in ABS. So I don't have any blobbing or anything weird at all. Now there is slight layering here and there, but it's very slight. And the same kind of rigging or ghosting a little bit here and there. So, but then again, for what this printer can do, that's quite minor. So here we have a Squirtle. It's basically a turtle and a squirrel, I guess. Again, in the same ABS filament, looking really nice. So overall turned out really good. Again, slight light layering, but it's only in the shadows. You can't actually feel them. Like you see this layering here a bit. This is only in the shadows or because of the lighting. In reality, practically can't feel them. So, and everything stuck to the bed very well and then popped off, but it does keep pulling some white residue with it. So not sure it's because of the heat or what, but the bed's working very well also. And my two last favorite prints that I always print is the astronaut and the spaceship. Let's take a closer look at the astronaut here. So it is in white, also ABS. Looks pretty darn good. There is a little bit of layering, especially a pretty large one here at the helmet. Not sure exactly what happened there, but something offset it right here just a bit. But other than that, this looks pretty good. Again, considering that this is printed in ABS, quite good. And for the last print, we have the spaceship, and I haven't pulled it off the build platform. And I want to do it here on camera so we can see how this is going to go. And the reason I'm a little worried is because this is actually printed in spiralized mode with ABS. And you guys can see how nice it turned out. So yeah, I'm a little worried because it's so thin. I might break it while trying to pull it off. So let's go ahead and just look at it. So we can see the layers are sitting very nice. There is some vibrations, but not bad at all. The windows look good. So yeah, for a spiralized mode with one layer all the way around, turned out really, really good. And as we go up, even this part here turned out well also and didn't completely melt. It did melt a bit here on the top, but yeah, very impressive. And this is 200 millimeters tall, so this is the maximum height that this printer can print. All right, so for the moment of truth, let's go ahead and I'm gonna flex it and see what happens. Okay, yeah, I can see that it's breaking at the legs here, so it doesn't want to come off. So I think this one we're gonna have to try to pry. So yeah, if there's anything to complain about, which is probably not a terrible thing to complain about, is that this bed surface here sticks extremely well. And I think adjusting the gap to be a little bigger than it needs to be actually would work out better because of how well it sticks. But all right, so I am able to get under one leg. Let's see if we can continue this. All right, so it's kind of working out. I think if I had a longer spatula, it'd probably work a little better. Nevertheless, it is popping off, and we did not break it, looks like. Wow, look at that. So yeah, we can see the bottom again. There's white haze, and it does grip to the bed very well. And I'm guessing the 100C on the temperature here really fuses it together pretty well. But yeah, pretty cool. So yeah, guys, I think this printer is quite interesting in what it offers: a sealed enclosure that enables you to print hotter temperature filaments like PETG and ABS. So I think if you were looking for a printer that can do ABS, this one here does an excellent job. And because it has a direct drive extruder, you can also do TPU, which we didn't try, but because of the direct drive, it obviously should do well with that. So we got a very reasonable 260 by 200 by 200 tall build volume. Very sturdy metal frame on the inside with the plastic shell on the outside, completely sealed, somewhat silent stepper drivers, pretty good UI with a touchscreen navigation, and also not to mention the extra whole hot end extruder assembly that it comes with. Now one thing I noticed that it doesn't seem to have a filament detector unless it's built in into the hot end, and also the power resume could be an issue because the bed does fall, as you guys saw. But yeah, other than that guys, if you are interested in printing ABS, this printer here is a excellent one to go with. Now, if you're looking for a printer just to do PLA, then it probably doesn't make sense. So unless you're going to do the ABS or higher temperatures, you're probably better off looking into something else. So yeah, guys, this is the QIDI Tech iMate S model. If you do want to pick up this printer for yourself, I'll have some links in the description. Check it out. And if you enjoyed this video, then hit that like button. If you want to see more videos, check out my playlist. I have a bunch of 3D printer videos. And also, if you are interested in videos like this, stay tuned. There's more coming. And as always, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.